The Tigers are outright SEC regular season champs, but are without their head coach. So what's next for Will Wade and LSU? We'll discuss. Plus, where might the Saints look to get better through free agency? Spring football begins in Baton Rouge, and we'll wrap up an up-and-down college baseball weekend.
What a weird atmosphere it was at the Pete Maravich Center last night in Baton Rouge. Welcome to 4th Down on 4. I'm Andrew Doak. First, we bring you our poll question of the night. Did LSU and Athletics Director Joe Alleva make the right call in suspending head coach Will Wade? Head to our website at wwltv.com/vote or on our mobile app. We'll bring you the results at the end of the show. With the Tennessee loss Saturday morning, it set the table for a conference coronation of LSU, who is facing a Vanderbilt team that was winless in conference play. But instead of fans pounding their chests screaming, "We're number one," fans were booing and calling for their athletics director to be fired. What a time to be alive.
LSU AD Joe Alleva faced the music he knew was coming his way on Saturday night, and the stereo was turned up to 11. A second Yahoo report dropped Thursday that revealed Wade being recorded on a second FBI wiretap, this time discussing a, quote, strong-ass offer for who's believed to be freshman guard Javonte Smart. Friday it was reported that Alleva and the rest of the LSU brass tried to meet with Wade to speak about the allegations, but per the advice of Wade's counsel, Wade declined. So Alleva felt he had no choice but to suspend Wade, and many of the Tigers faithful were livid.
Every big coach, big teams does this sort of thing, so it doesn't matter to me.
If Will Wade is relieved or if anything like that goes down, I think Alleva has to go out the door with him.
I can see why the administration did it, but I don't like it as a fan. I think he should stay until everything plays out.
Saturday, the Tigers had to carry on without their general, but he wasn't the only one missing from the Tigers platoon. That morning, LSU announced they would sit Javonte Smart, just in case he is the player implicated. And then just hours before game time, they were down another freshman, Naz Reid, due to injury.
You know, they showed a lot of resiliency. Been through a lot this season. They really, after they got the news the other day, really came together, and we're not done yet.
At the news of Wade's suspension, LSU assistant Tony Benford was named the Tigers' interim head coach. Benford says he told the rest of the assistants that they would approach this challenge as co-coaches, but Benford would also need a chief on the floor.
A leadership like guys on your team like Skylar Mays, Tremont Waters, those guys did a great job. I said, guys, you're going to have to help me, you know.
Both Mays and Waters answered the call. They had 13 and 14 points respectively, but Waters' 8 assists helped set up Darius Days and former scout teamer Marshall Graves to light it up off the bench. The two combined for 27 off the pine.
We deserve to be up here wearing these shirts and wearing these hats, and we've come a long way. We've been through a lot of adversity, but we still got more to go, but we're happy with where we're at right now.
I had to take on the role of being the coach on the floor more than I usually do, and I had to make calls, and when you have great teammates like this, it's hard to go in the wrong direction.
It also would have been hard for LSU to lose this game. Vandy was 0-17 in conference play coming into Baton Rouge. It would have taken a miracle for the Tigers to drop the ball against the doors, even without their head coach and 2 of their best players. But now the question becomes, how will LSU handle the storm that's surrounding them without Wade?
I had a chance to talk to him, you know, and he said, hey, just get the guys ready and you guys go win the championship. And so it's a difficult time for everybody, you know, and so, but our guys, the main focus got to be on the kids.
Even though everyone else's focus is on Wade's future.
Now the SEC men's tournament begins Wednesday, but it won't start for LSU until Friday because remember the Tigers have earned the top seed and a double bye. They'll either get 8th seeded Florida or 9th seeded Arkansas Razorbacks when they first play. All right now we bring in WBRZ sports reporter Mike Gaither up in Baton Rouge. And Mike, it's hard to think of a scene quite like what we saw last night at the PMAC. I think this situation is unique since no other head coach has been caught on an FBI wiretap twice talking about pay for play. And I think LSU wants to get ahead of this in case an NCAA suspension does happen so they can show they're cooperating. But based on Wade's contract, suspending him could also save LSU a little money. How much, if at all, do you think that plays a role?
Yeah, I'm not really buying that. I don't believe LSU pulled the trigger to save money. Will Wade respectfully declined to meet with LSU officials on Friday after getting what most people would presume was legal advice in that situation. Obviously, in the language of the contract, Wade will still make his $400,000 base salary for the season. But with the current suspension, he will not receive any incentives for separate accolades unless the suspension is somehow figured out and resolved. And if we're talking money, it's hard to imagine that to be a driving factor when the LSU athletic department, they toss around money like it's candy. Shoot, they're paying Dave Aranda $2 million plus as a defensive coordinator. That's the highest number in college football. So I don't think money was a factor in this situation, but I could be wrong.
Mike, LSU has maintained since the suspension they're going to play in the SEC tournament and the big dance. In your opinion, is that the right call?
Yeah, no doubt 100%. It's definitely the right call. Why wouldn't you play in Nashville or the NCAA tournament? I mean, we're talking about the most exciting LSU basketball season that we've maybe seen in 30 years, unless you count the 2006 Final Four team. Right now, if you're LSU, you have nothing to lose. It's an us against the world type of mindset. And if you look at Arizona last season, they suspended their head coach, Sean Miller, for one game, then brought him right back. So if worse comes to worse for LSU, they'll get hit with a postseason ban. They'll forfeit all the wins regardless, but the players, they still deserve an opportunity to play. They've earned it, and the people here in Louisiana will gladly take a run to that Final Four, regardless of what the final outcome may be.
How big of a blow is this in your mind, losing Wade? I mean, look, I know people still think they can make it all the way to Minneapolis for the Final Four, but I think Wade's one of the best young coaches in the country.
Yeah, in all honesty, I think it was more of a mental hurdle when the news first broke on Friday. The players, coaches, they didn't really know what was going on, but in reality, nothing really changes for this LSU basketball team. They got a great staff in place. Interim coach Tony Benford, he'll keep everything as routine as possible for the guys. Practice, it'll stay the same. The film sessions will all be the same. Travel on the road stays the same. So the only thing that really might change is the guy actually yelling at them inside the huddle and the in-game adjustments that Will Wade would normally make. But right now, this is a scary team. They have all the right ingredients with strong point guard play. They got a rim protector in Cavell Bigby Williams. They got athletes that can defend the wing. And last but not least, they got an extra chip and an edge that no other team has after losing a teammate last September.
Now, Wade said that the reports don't begin to tell the full story, but based on what we know, the Yahoo report implicating not only Wade, but freshman guard Javonte Smart, who they sat last night due to what LSU called an abundance of caution. Do you think Wade and Smart have played and coached their final games at LSU?
Yeah, that's honestly a tough question. Nobody really knows at this point. In my eyes, that would be a really tough decision to bring Will Wade back. And I agree, there's always two sides to every story, but there's no denying what was said on that FBI wiretap, and the conversation was not good. I'll leave you with this, though. The fact the FBI is even wiretapping phone calls is flat out ridiculous. Trying to pencil out any of these individual coaches who are trying to get a leg up on the bigger powerhouse programs, it's kind of like putting on deodorant. It doesn't work. It still stinks. And at this point, the entire system needs a shower. Everything needs to be cleaned and fixed at this point. So this isn't just an LSU problem. It's a systemic issue within college basketball and the NCAA. And now the players are the ones that have to suffer the ultimate consequence.
All right, good stuff as always. Thanks, Mike.
Yeah, thanks, guys. I appreciate you having me on.
Coming up, we'll shift our focus to NFL free agency, where the Saints are looking to get better in several areas. Mike Detillier tells us where he thinks the Saints need to prioritize, and if they'll be going after any playmakers at wide receiver. And later, LSU spring practice kicks off, and Tiger baseball takes 2 of 3 this weekend.
All right, great stuff as always from Mike Detillier. Of course, Ricardo Lecomte now joins us here at the desk. I still think one of the biggest needs, in my personal opinion, going into free agency and into the draft for the Saints, they need another pass catcher. I just don't know if you can survive this season with just having Michael Thomas be your number one. I know you kind of lean towards a tight end. I really like the slot guy, but make your pitch for a tight end.
Well, I think you just need somebody with another option on third down especially. Yeah. And I think either you get it at a number 2 wide receiver or you get it at tight end. And it's one of those where do the Saints feel comfortable in the development at wide receiver of Traquan Smith, or they feel like Cam Meredith can be healthy coming back, or they even feel like Keith Kirkwood can be somebody that can emerge as a second option behind Michael Thomas, because as you said, you can't just depend on Mike Thomas alone when teams already know we can double him over the top and take him away, and then you need to find another option. So I think you and I are kind of leaning towards someone in the slot to just make plays in third down, whether that comes in as a second wide receiver or at tight end. The Saints have not had a tight end be someone in that tight end position to be a major weapon in the last couple of years. If you get someone like a Jared Cook to fill in there in free agency and have that another option at Drew Brees at tight end, you can make a world of difference just in terms of third down or just having another option outside of Michael Thomas.
And Jared Cook would be a lot more productive, I think, than Benjamin Watson. And that's no hate on Benjamin Watson. He was just, he's older in his career and obviously retired after this past season. I love Golden Tate. I think he would fit perfect in this offense. Let's move to running back. That's another big question. Alvin Kamara can't take the beating on a down-to-down basis. And look, you want longevity for him. You don't want to beat him up. Mark Ingram, bringing him back, I think, is pretty important, but the price range, he's going into his third contract. It could be the last contract of his career, as he's going to be 30 years old this next year. Someone like Latavius Murray, Christian McCaffrey, they're making about $4 million a year. Mark Ingram was making $4 million a year last year. Is he going to be okay with that? I guess that's the big question. Do you think they could entice him to come back in a system that he knows and is comfortable with for about the same money?
I think that's the key word, being comfortable and being in the system, knowing that he can play with a guy like Alvin Kamara to kind of share that workload. It's very appealing, knowing that you are with a team that can potentially win a Super Bowl, because at that point in his career, he knows the years are diminishing. He only probably has maybe 2 or 3 good years left. What's the best chance to win a championship? Now the money and now being paid like a back, how much does that a factor in Mark Ingram re-signing? Because the Saints don't have much wiggle room in terms of their cap spaces, around just a little over $10 million. Meanwhile, teams like the Bears or Packers, who have shown interest, we've seen reports have shown interest in Mark Ingram, have the cap space to give him the money that maybe he wants. And those are teams that potentially, like the Bears, have a chance to win a championship as well. So that will be kind of how he balances. How much does he love being here and being in the system? At the same time, how much does he want to be paid like the veteran that he is? So we're going to see some kind of maneuvering, shaking here in the next couple of days when free agency starts to see if the Saints can sign him. My gut says he stays and signs, just because I think this is the best option for him to win a championship.
Really quickly, I go between the Saints offensive line and defensive line. I think you have needs on both sides, but the offensive line, the starting 5, they're one of the best in the NFL, so I think you can survive there. Defensive line, though, does that pop out to you more as what you would attack first?
Especially if you lose Alex Okafor or Tyler Davis into free agency, I think you'll have a really thin defensive line going into next season. I think that's where the Saints need to address there first, is on the defensive line, like Mike Detillier said, especially if you have question marks on the defensive tackle going into the season.
No doubt about it. Ricardo Lecomte, great stuff as always. We'll have more 4th Down on 4 when we return.
Coming up, Tulane baseball slipped up a bit at home this weekend, while LSU used some late heroics to take their series against Cal. That and Southland baseball as well when we come back.